Did you know that doing less is actually the key to attracting everything you want in life? From my over 20 years of research, studying everything from quantum physics to universal laws, I know that this is absolutely true. In this video, I'm going to show you how to supercharge your manifestation abilities in less than 10 minutes per day, how to use the science of behavioral design to stay in a high frequency, and how to finally let go of the things that are keeping you stuck. The most important thing to realize when it comes to manifesting what you want in life is that the three-dimensional world responds most strongly to how you are feeling internally. Thus, the more often you can tap into feelings like abundance and prosperity, the more likely you'll be to attract those things into your life. And here's the super key. The universe already is an abundant, expansive place. So all you need to do is tap into and align with the abundance that is already there, and then you can watch the magic unfold. The author Richard Dotz has a great analogy for this. He says that right now it's like we're standing in this beautiful field of flowers. The flowers are already there, but we can't see them because we're so busy looking for things outside of ourselves to make us feel happy and abundant. But if we just look internally and feel the abundance that is already there, we can easily attract the things we want. Quantum physics even backs up this idea. According to quantum scientists, we exist in a quantum field of infinite possibilities, and the field does not respond to wishes, hopes, or surface level thoughts. It responds to our dominant emotional states. So when you deeply feel the reality of what you want before it happens, you can collapse the quantum possibilities into reality. This sounds easy, and it is, but here is how most people mess this up. They mess this up by engaging too often in negative thought patterns. Negative thought patterns are what holds most people back. The two biggest culprits of this are worrying and complaining, especially about money. These are the things that keep you out of that natural state of infinite abundance. That is your birthright. So first, stop worrying, stop complaining. The second thing we want to do is we want to start feeling that natural abundant state on a regular basis. It's actually very easy. What I invite you to do, I invite you to just pause, take a minute, and just feel into that feeling of abundance. If you're brave enough, or if you're in a place where you can do so, just close your eyes for a minute and just tap into that feeling of abundance. You can use a different word if you want, love, joy, expansion. Now the key here is don't force it. This is where manifestation teachers can mess us up. I'm not telling you to do things like imagine what it's like when you have $1 million in your bank account, or imagine what it's like when you have that Ferrari. No, just relax and let that abundance unfold. And then what I invite you to do is just be in this feeling more often throughout the day. If you're a little more structured, what you can do is you can actually set aside 5 to 10 minutes per day just to be in this state, kind of as part of a meditation type practice. That's one thing you can do. And then you can also just make a note just throughout the day when you have time, kind of in those in-between times, you can just spend a minute, just relax into that state of infinite abundance. And you're going to find some magical things that happen as a result of this. So that's kind of a little bit of a go with the flow type way to go about doing this. And if you're more structured like I am, I'm now going to show you a very, very structured, kind of more disciplined way of activating that infinite abundance. We do this with what I like to call the abundance algorithms. An algorithm is simply a repeatable system. This idea comes from one of the world's leading behavioral scientists, a guy by the name of B.J. Fogg. B.J. Fogg created a comprehensive system for behavioral design that he talks about in his excellent book, Tiny Habits, which I highly, highly recommend you check out. Fun fact, this idea actually formed the basis for James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, which is actually one of the it's like the best-selling book of the last 5 years. So very, very powerful idea. The main premise of Tiny Habits is that you can change any behavior you want or adopt any habit simply by starting really, really, really small. The example that BJ gives is that, for example, when he wanted to start flossing all of his teeth twice a day, he started just by flossing one tooth. So you could use this framework I'm about to share with you for really adopting any habit you want in your life. But possibly the most important habit you can adopt is the habit of being in this abundant state as often as possible. Here's how to do it. There's 3 steps to installing any habit. It's as simple as A, B, C. First, we have the anchor, which is the cue that allows us to remember to do the habit. Then we have the behavior itself, which would be, in this example, flossing one tooth. And then we have a celebration. It's important to celebrate because this releases dopamine and helps you get the habit locked in. One of BJ's maxims is we change better by feeling good, not feeling bad. So, for example, the recipe that we would have for flossing your teeth is after I am done brushing my teeth, then I will floss one tooth, and then you'll celebrate. So A, B, C. It's very, very, very key. So one of the most important things here is you want to install your habits based on the anchors, things that are happening to you throughout the day. That's essentially the best way to remember to do the habit, if that makes sense. You want to have cues throughout the day that kind of remind you to do the habit. So for example, a really good anchor might be, if you want to get a meditating habit, would be after I finish my morning cup of coffee, then I'll meditate for 1 minute. Does that make sense? Okay, so here is how you can create your own abundance algorithms. What I want you to do is I want you to think about things that are happening to you throughout the day and use them as anchors, as cues to get into that abundant state that we're talking about. You can also use it as cues to do things like mantras, affirmations, things that you feel grateful for, if that makes sense. So the idea here is just like we want to be having cues that get us into that abundant state. So for example, a couple of my favorite abundance algorithms are whenever I'm washing my hands after using the restroom, for example, I'll think of 3 things that I'm grateful for. Another one of my favorites is whenever I'm waiting for something, like I'm waiting for a stoplight or I'm waiting for an elevator, I will just use that as a cue to get into that abundant state for a couple minutes or for however long it takes. Oftentimes I'll use mantras as well. So for example, whenever I'm done washing my dishes, after I put the last dish in the dish rack thing, I'll then say to myself, I feel lavishly abundant. I feel lavishly abundant. And you can come up with your own ideas. So that is how we can apply the abundance algorithms into our life. In the next section, I'm going to show you how to exponentialize everything we talked about with the idea that 10x is easier than 2x. This is an idea that comes from Dan Sullivan and was popularized in his excellent book called 10x is easier than 2x, which was co-written by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. Most people think that growing from where you are now to where you want to go requires just working harder. But true 10x growth comes not from doing more of the same. It instead comes from eliminating 80% of the activities that only produce those incremental results. So if you only focus on the 20% that creates exponential impact, then you can really, really grow. So the key isn't grinding harder, working harder, all those types of things. It's thinking bigger, simplifying, and strategically removing things that don't move the needle. The classic example that illustrates this idea is Michelangelo's David. As the story goes, somebody asked Michelangelo how was he able to create such a breathtaking sculpture from a block of marble. His reply, I simply removed everything that wasn't David. So in other words, he eliminated what wasn't important and went all in on what truly mattered. So at most applications of this idea, they're really related to business growth, which is awesome. You know, like what's the 80% of things in your business that you can eliminate? And what's the 20% that you can go all in on that's going to get you to that next level of growth? But I think it's just as transformational or even more transformational to think about how can you apply this idea to upgrading your frequency? So for example, what are the 80% of things that are holding your frequency down that you could eliminate? And what are the 20% of the things that really raise your frequency that you could go all in on, that you could exponentialize for that vibrational upgrade? For example, I once worked with a woman who discovered that she had a group of friends that were really, really holding her down. They were just, not positive people. They were not high achievers like herself. And at the same time, she also found out that she really loved to paint. So, as you might imagine, she stopped spending so much time with these friends who were draining her down in her free time, and then she went all in on painting, and that gave her a vibrational upgrade, which actually allowed her to make much, much, much more money in her business. So that's how you apply it. Just think about what are the things that you love to do that give you a great vibrational upgrade, and what are the things that you can stop doing that are taking your frequency down. It's really those extremes which are going to allow you to create that 10x type growth in your frequency, which is going to create 10x type growth for you in the 3-dimensional world. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can actually get even more of what you want in life by letting go. It's one of those counterintuitive secrets. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I love to know what you thought of this video. So please let me know in the comments below. Please also like and subscribe to this video if it's your first time here. And that is all I got for today. This is Ron Reich. Keeping awesome, and I'll talk to you soon.